I'm well aware of that. We're gonna rock and roll. Good afternoon, Mr. Hayet, Commissioners. Good afternoon again. Let's get right to it. Mr. Hayet, just a quick preliminary question. Did you attend or listen to the hearing in this docket on November 3rd?
You mean the George Powers?
Yes.
I did not.
Did you review the transcript from the November 3rd hearing?
I did not have a chance.
Okay, thank you. At page 4 of your pre-filed testimony, you state that the company's current total project cost has decreased by $65 million since the 12th VCM proceeding due to lower projected financing costs. Is the $65 million in lower financing costs connected to the company's reduced weighted average cost of capital by 25 basis points referenced at pages 7 and 9 of your testimony?
Yes, it has an effect, yes.
Is it the same thing, or is it you're saying?
No, it has an effect because you also have a different spending curve, so that has an effect as well.
But the $65 million then is not part of the weighted average cost of capital.
No, they both have an effect on the financing costs being lower. Both of them would drive that.
All I'm trying to find out here is the $65 million connected to the weighted average cost of capital?
I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I'm telling you that the financing costs that were determined in the 12th VCM were $65 million higher. The reason they're lower now is because we have a weighted average cost of capital that's lower, and that we have a different spending curve. And the spending curve drives the timing on the calculation of the financing charges. Therefore, that $65 million is driven by both factors. Both factors drive that number. I don't understand your question.
Well, I'm going to try to make it clear here. We're going to refer to page 7. I'm going to refer to page 7 of your pre-filed testimony, lines 17 through 18, in which you state, for example, the company reduced the weighted average cost of capital by about 25 basis points in the 13th VCM. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is the 25 basis points $65 million in value?
Both?
Yes or no, please? Yes or no?
Really, you can answer the question, you can give it an explanation. Let's let witness.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to get, he can have whatever time he needs for an explanation.
But you can't dictate his answer, Mr. Baker.
I've never heard a lawyer say yes and no in my life. I'm gonna do like he does over there. Him answer it like he wants to.
Go ahead, Mr. Hayet.
Honestly, if you're accusing me of trying to be evasive, I have no reason to be evasive in answering your question. Okay, you've asked me the way I heard your question, you said the company changed by 25 basis points the assumption on the weighted average cost of capital. That would have an effect have an impact on determining what the financing charges are. The company as well changed the spending curve. The timing of when the dollars are spent will also have an effect on the financing costs. Both taken together lead to the $65 million being lower in the 13th VCM than 12. I don't know how I can give you an answer any different.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your answer. Do you know what weighted average cost of capital did you use in preparing your testimony today?
If the company can remind me if that's a trade secret number, I can reveal that.
If it is trade
Mr.
secret,
Hayet, be sure and kind of get a little, that mic back. Thank you.
trade secret.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that's going to be a trade secret for.
You do not?
I do not. It's an open number. I can use that, Mr. Hayet.
7.5%.
7.5%. Thank you. At page 4, does the $866 million financing cost on line 23 include the 46% tax gross up?
I'm sorry, would you repeat your question?
At page 4.
Which line?
Line 23. Does the $866 million cost on line 23 include the 46% tax gross up?
It doesn't include tax growth.
If the tax gross up were added to the $866 million, subject to check, based on a 46% rate, would that figure be $1,264 million approximately?
It seems like that would be correct, subject to check, based on the assumption of a 46% rate, which I'm not going to sit here and say is correct.
Okay, I'm using that figure because in the 12th VCM, that was the figure that you testified to. So if that number is
Subject to check.
subject to check, okay. But if I'm using an incorrect tax figure, I would make an ongoing hearing request to you to please advise me if I'm using the correct figure in these calculations. If you used a different.
I'll make a point
Okay.
to have that when you ask your question.
Okay, thank you. At page 5, could you tell me what is the amount of the entire capital cost of the comparable combined cycle gas turbine units that you used in your economic evaluation?
I don't believe I have that with me, I'm sorry.
Could I make that a hearing request?
If you'd like to have data requests, I'd be happy to answer it too. We can.
No, I just would like a number, and you
I'd
obviously.
like to know what the dollar cost of the combined cycle installed cost.
What you,
Or
yes,
cost
sir.
are you asking?
Yes, sir. What you used when you made this when you did your comparison for your testimony today,
Okay.
you used a figure.
I'll be happy to
Okay.
provide that.
And does that figure change over time, such as, will it be different in the 12th VCM as opposed to the 14th VCM?
Yes, it could be.
Okay. But right now, could I just get it for the figure you used in your calculations for the 13th VCM? Thank you. In your second recommendation, you state that, quote, staff has determined that the incremental project benefits since certification have been completely eliminated by the detriments, close quote. In your economic evaluation, did you include 100% of the production tax credits for both units 3 and 4?
Yes, to the extent that the units are in service prior to the end of 2020, any analysis that was done with that assumption would have had 100% production tax credit. Or actually, the company's evaluation actually assumes 50% as a conservative analysis. But it's assumed that they're using 100% of what's available, put it that way.
Okay. I understand the company uses 50%, but in your economic evaluation, did you use 100% of
No,
that?
I use the conservative assumption. We do use, well, actually, if you're pointing to number 2, I'm sorry, in regards to number 2 on my summary,
Yes, sir. That is it. That's it.
In the analysis on number 2, looking at the additional benefits and the additional detriments, we do include it in that analysis because that is considered an additional benefit that wasn't considered at certification.
So you used 100% of the production tax credits.
Right, but let me be clear. At first, I thought that your question was a timing question, and that you were wondering about, are we using the production tax credits that are available that might go away if the unit is delayed after 2020? And the answer to that question, if that's your question, is for the assumption when runs are being made prior, that the units are coming online prior to the end of 2020, we're using the fully available, whatever is fully available of the production tax credit, we're making use of. Now, of what's available, we take 50% of that, because that's a conservative assumption that the company has made all along. But when you do this additional benefits and detriments analysis, then you put that back in, because that's treated as an additional benefit.
So once again, for clarification, referencing your recommendation, your second recommendation, you used 100% of the production tax credits.
That's right.
Thank you. And are the production tax credits for both units 3 and 4 worth approximately $1,044 million?
Yes.
So if Unit 4 does not receive the $522 million in production tax credits, wouldn't that mean that the detriments now fully negate any of the incremental project benefits stated at certification?
Well, I think that we've already gotten that point. We've already gotten, that's the whole purpose of the statement here, where if you read, staff has determined that the incremental project benefits since certification have been completely eliminated by the detriments. It would just mean that it would be a greater disbenefit if you didn't have the full production tax credit in the calculation of this incremental, the additional benefits versus the additional detriments.
So it would be an additional $522 million in detriment.
Well, the revenue requirement impacted all that.
In your table 3 indicates a negative $103 million incremental revenue requirement for the project.
That's of the additional benefits versus additional detriments calculation. It's a disbenefit of $103 million.
And that's a reduction of $311 million since the 12th VCM. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do all the delay scenarios utilized in your evaluations exclude the production tax credits for Unit 4?
The one, that's what I was explaining before. Whenever, in any delay scenario in which the unit is online post the end of 2020, then they don't get the production tax credits.
As part of your updated economic evaluation for the 13th VCM, you adjusted the total project cost. In your table 2, the total project cost for the company is now $8,409 million, and that's correct?
Yes. We're showing the grand total is $8.4 billion.
Also in table 2, you indicate that financing costs with the 39-month delay are $2,408 million.
Yes.
Does that figure include the 46% tax adjustment?
No.
Okay. Subject to check, if the $2,408 million financing costs were adjusted for taxes using 46% tax rate, would that amount be $1,107 million approximately? Subject to check.
Subject to check.
Okay. And if you added the additional tax cost on financing charges to the $8,409,000,000, would that add up to $9,516,000,000?
No, it was, what we're using, 1 point what?
If, subject to check, if you added to the $8,409,000,000 figure that you're currently using, the taxes on the of $1,107,000,000, would that add up to $9,516,000,000? Yes. Thank you. And with that adjustment, would the total cost for the project be approximately $21 billion?
And you're dividing by 0.457 to get the total project cost?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're doing?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
If the current project revenue requirement,
I would say, I'm sorry, I would say that you're calculating total project costs on financing costs for Georgia Power and trying to figure out what the total project cost is. You know, that may not be the appropriate way to do it, because there's municipals, co-ops that own it, so you've grossed it up as if all these are jurisdictional utilities to get a total cost.
yes, sir. Yes, I have, and that's the calculation. If you have another, I mean, I know you can't do it right now.
I won't do it. You're trying to calculate costs that are for other non-jurisdictional or other utilities that are the owners. I'm just pointing out that it's not necessarily the same calculation.
All right, thank you. But for just Georgia Power's portion, then, we can agree on that the adjusted cost would be $9,516,000, subject to check, of course. Okay, thank you. Dealing with cost allocation between units, I had asked you before if you'd listened to the hearing on November 3rd or looked at the testimony that was in regard to this line of question. As an expert doing economic evaluations, do you have an opinion regarding cost allocation where expenditures for units 3 and 4 provide benefits to units 1 and 2?
I don't have an opinion on that. I'm sorry. That's not something that I have opined on. You're asking about the impact of units 3 and 4 on units 1 and 2 on a cost allocation, the benefits to units 1 and 2.
Okay, let me give you an example from the testimony. In the company's response to staff data request 73-6, showed that Training Center B includes $4 million that benefits units 1 and 2, and that was the direct...
Training Center B?
Yes, sir. Training Center B. You can call it whatever you want. It's Training Center B. Provides $4 million that benefits units 1 and 2. Would you like to see the data response answer?
I'd have to see it.
Yes, you may.
Sorry.
I know you're not familiar with the second.
Do you see the reference at the bottom of the page to Training Center B includes $4 million that benefits units 1 and 2?
Yes.
All right. As an expert witness, who's providing economic evaluation is proceeding. Do you have an opinion regarding cost allocation where the expenditures for units 3 and 4 provide benefits to units 1 and 2?
Units 3 and 4. So what you're referring to here says that the training center B includes $4 million that benefits units 1 and 2. I see that. $4 million, and you're trying to apportion the cost of that $4 million between the two, between units 1, 2, 3, and 4, effectively. Is that what you're trying to do?
Not even
Trying
close.
to do
Not
that?
even close. This is a real simple one.
Okay, go ahead.
All right? The data response here, you have before you. Maybe you better read it. Could you just read it?
It's not my data request, first of all.
Well, it's the staff's data
Okay,
request.
all right.
And you're a staff
You
expert.
know,
It's not part of my testimony.
this is not, it is a staff data request. Mr. Hayet has already testified he's not familiar with this. He can answer the questions about it, and I'm perfectly happy to have him. He's already said he's not familiar with it. We can say he's an expert, but that's perfectly fine. But this is not a portion of his testimony. He's not testifying out of the 12 PC. So, I mean, again, if Mr. Hayet can answer the question, I'm perfectly happy with him answering the questions, but I don't think we need to be sitting here badgering him about something he can't answer.
Mr. Hayet, would you answer the question, please?
I'll do my best.
Thank you.
Would you repeat your question, please?
As an expert witness in this proceeding, doing an economic evaluations for the staff, do you have an opinion regarding the cost allocation where expenditures for units 3 and 4 provide benefits to units 1 and 2? Should those costs be appropriately allocated to units 1 and 2?
I don't know all the facts and circumstances, so I can't give you an expert opinion. But if these benefits are for both, then perhaps. I don't know. I don't know all the facts and circumstances about how they are or not. Maybe they are going to be apportioned. I don't know. It's a reasonable assumption. That's all I can tell you. You're getting into a issue that is usually determined during rate cases. That's not what my testimony is about. My testimony deals with the production cost, the revenue requirements associated with the Vogtle. I have not looked at any analysis of how down the line costs are going to be allocated. I haven't looked at cost allocation between different rate classes. I don't know how these costs will be allocated or what the circumstances will be.
All right. I'd like to just finish up with some general questions about financing charges. I believe Ms. Coyle had asked you a few questions about the difference in the financing charge rates for the original certified cost of the project and the new amended cost of the project. The financing costs were 38% for the total, or approximately 8% of the total construction and capital costs of the project at the original certified rate. They have now increased to approximately 48%.
And I believe you're looking at table number 2, the figure, you're looking at the capital cost between certification and 13 PCM on table 2.
No, I'm not, but I'm just asking you the question. Could you explain the difference in the increase in the financing costs between the original certified amount and the current total cost of the project?
The financing costs are higher now due to the delay period that's taken place. The calculated financing costs have gone up by the $713 million. Are you asking? I'm not quite sure what you're trying to get at.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hayet, for your time. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Leggett. Ms. Carroll?
And thanks to Ms. Carroll for her courtesy.